Marcus Richardson adjusted his expensive tie for the third time that morning as he walked through the glass corridors of Richardson Technologies. At 42, he had built his company from a small startup in his garage to a multinational corporation worth over $2 billion. Today was the biggest day of his career. The board meeting that would determine whether his company would merge with the Japanese tech giant Yamamoto Industries was scheduled to begin in 2 hours. The sleek chrome and glass building buzzed with activity. Employees hurried past with tablets and laptops, their faces focused and determined. Marcus had spent months preparing for this presentation. Every slide, every financial projection, every technical demonstration had been rehearsed countless times. The merger would catapult Richardson Technologies into the global market, making it one of the top 5 technology companies in the world. "Good morning, Mr. Richardson," called Sarah Chen, his head of operations, as she jogged to catch up with him. "The Japanese delegation arrived an hour ago. They're in the executive conference room reviewing the preliminary documents." Marcus nodded, his confidence unwavering. "Excellent. Have you run the final systems check on the presentation equipment?" "Everything's perfect, sir. The new quantum servers are running at optimal capacity, and we've got triple redundancy on all critical systems." Sarah's voice carried the same confidence that had made her invaluable to the company. As they entered the elevator to the 20th floor, Marcus reflected on how far he had come. 20 years ago, he was a college dropout working nights at a computer repair shop. His breakthrough came when he developed a revolutionary data compression algorithm that could reduce file sizes by 90% without losing quality. That single innovation had launched his empire. The executive conference room was a masterpiece of modern design. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. The centerpiece was a massive oak table surrounded by leather chairs that cost more than most people's cars. At one end of the room stood a wall-mounted display system worth $500,000, capable of rendering 3-dimensional holographic presentations. Kenji Yamamoto, the 70-year-old patriarch of Yamamoto Industries, sat at the far end of the table. His weathered face showed decades of business experience, and his sharp eyes missed nothing. Beside him sat his daughter Yuki, a brilliant engineer in her own right, and their team of lawyers and technical advisors. "Mr. Yamamoto," Marcus said, extending his hand with practiced charm. "Welcome to Richardson Technologies. I trust your flight was comfortable." The older man's handshake was firm despite his age. "Very much so, Mr. Richardson. We are eager to see what your company has to offer." Marcus took his position at the head of the table, his executive team flanking him on both sides. The room filled with tension and anticipation. Billions of dollars hung in the balance of the next few hours. "Before we begin," Marcus announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to commanding attention, "I want to assure you that what you're about to see will revolutionize how the world handles data storage and processing." He pressed a button on his remote, and the wall display came to life with the Richardson Technologies logo. The presentation began with impressive financial projections, showing consistent growth year over year. Charts and graphs demonstrated market penetration across different sectors, from healthcare to entertainment to government contracts. "As you can see," Marcus continued, clicking to the next slide, "our proprietary algorithms have captured 37% of the data compression market in just 5 years. With Yamamoto's manufacturing capabilities and distribution network, we project we could reach 70% market share within 3 years." Yuki Yamamoto leaned forward. Her interest clearly piqued. "These numbers are impressive, Mr. Richardson, but we're more interested in seeing the actual technology in action." Marcus smiled. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "Of course. What you're about to witness is a live demonstration of our newest innovation, real-time quantum data processing. We can compress, encrypt, and transmit data at speeds previously thought impossible." He clicked to activate the demonstration sequence. The screen should have displayed a complex 3-dimensional model of data flowing through virtual networks. Instead, it showed nothing but a blue loading screen with a spinning circle. Marcus frowned and clicked again. Still nothing. He tried a third time, his confidence beginning to waver. The loading circle continued its endless rotation, mocking him in front of the most important audience of his career. "Is there a technical difficulty?" Kenji Yamamoto asked, his tone neutral but his eyes sharp. "Just a minor glitch," Marcus replied, trying to maintain his composure. He pressed his intercom button. "Sarah, we're having some display issues in the executive conference room. Can you send someone up immediately?" The voice that crackled back through the speaker carried an edge of panic that made Marcus's stomach drop. "Sir, we're experiencing system-wide failures. The quantum servers have gone offline and our backup systems aren't responding. The entire network is down." The room fell silent. Marcus felt sweat beginning to form on his forehead, despite the perfectly climate-controlled environment. 20 years of building his empire and it was all falling apart at the worst possible moment. "How long until it's fixed?" he asked, his voice strained. "We don't know, sir. Our IT department is working on it, but they've never seen anything like this before. The system seems to be completely unresponsive." Marcus looked around the table at the faces of the Japanese delegation. Professional poker faces revealed nothing, but he could sense their growing doubt. In the world of high-stakes business, technical failures were often seen as signs of deeper organizational problems. "Perhaps," Yuki Yamamoto said quietly, "we should postpone this meeting until your systems are operational." "No, please," Marcus said, perhaps a bit too desperately. "This is just a temporary setback. My team will have everything running within the hour." But even as he spoke the words, Marcus knew he was losing control of the situation. Everything he had worked for, everything he had built, was slipping away because of a computer malfunction. The irony wasn't lost on him that the CEO of a technology company was being undone by technology itself. Outside the conference room windows, the city continued its daily rhythm, unaware that 20 floors above, a man's entire world was beginning to crumble. 30 minutes had passed since the system failure began, and the atmosphere in the executive conference room had grown increasingly tense. Marcus Richardson paced behind his chair, his expensive shoes clicking against the polished marble floor. Every few seconds he would glance at his watch, then at the still-dark presentation screen, then at the impassive faces of the Japanese delegation. Sarah Chen burst through the conference room doors, her usually perfect hair disheveled and her professional composure cracking. "Sir, I need to speak with you privately." Marcus excused himself and stepped into the adjacent smaller conference room with Sarah. Through the glass partition, he could see Kenji Yamamoto in quiet discussion with his daughter and advisors. Their body language suggested they were already considering their exit strategy. "Talk to me, Sarah. What exactly is happening down there?" Sarah's hands shook slightly as she consulted her tablet. "It's worse than we initially thought. The quantum servers didn't just go offline, they've been completely corrupted. All our primary data storage systems are showing critical errors. The backup systems that were supposed to automatically activate are showing the same corruption patterns." Marcus felt his world tilting. "That's impossible. We have 7 layers of redundancy built into that system. It cost us $50 million specifically to prevent this kind of catastrophic failure." "That's what I thought too. But our head of IT says it looks like a cascading system failure. One corrupted file somehow propagated through our entire network infrastructure. He's never seen anything like it. It's almost like the system is eating itself from the inside out." Through the glass partition, Marcus watched Yuki Yamamoto checking her phone. Her father was beginning to gather his papers. They were preparing to leave. "How long until we can get even basic systems back online?" Marcus asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "The IT team estimates 12 to 18 hours minimum, assuming they can even identify the source of the corruption." "Sir, there's something else." Sarah hesitated, clearly reluctant to deliver more bad news. "This isn't just affecting our internal systems. The failure has propagated to our client networks. We're getting calls from major clients experiencing similar system crashes." Marcus felt his knees go weak. If Richardson Technologies was responsible for crashing client systems, the lawsuits alone would destroy the company. The merger with Yamamoto Industries would be impossible, and his reputation in the tech industry would be ruined forever. He returned to the main conference room, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. "Mr. Yamamoto, I sincerely apologize for this unexpected delay. Perhaps we could reconvene tomorrow morning when our systems are fully operational." Kenji Yamamoto stood slowly, his weathered hands gripping his walking cane. "Mr. Richardson, in my 60 years of business, I have learned that a company's true character is revealed not in times of success, but in moments of crisis. What I see today concerns me greatly. Sir, I understand your reservations, but this is truly an unprecedented technical anomaly. Richardson Technologies has maintained a 99.7% uptime record for over 5 years. That may be true, Yuki Yamamoto interjected, but what we're witnessing suggests fundamental flaws in your system architecture. A truly robust system should not be capable of this kind of total failure. Marcus watched helplessly as the Japanese delegation began packing their materials. 20 years of work, destroyed in less than an hour by a computer glitch. 3 floors below, in the basement of the Richardson Technologies building, Rosa Martinez was mopping the floors of the server room. At 55, she had worked as a cleaning lady for the company for nearly 15 years. Her English was heavily accented, and most employees barely acknowledged her existence, but Rosa took pride in her work. She knew every inch of the building better than anyone. As she cleaned around the massive server racks, Rosa noticed something unusual. Several of the normally blinking lights on the quantum processors were completely dark, while others flashed in erratic patterns she had never seen before. Having cleaned this room thousands of times, she knew what normal looked like. More concerning was the sound. Instead of the usual quiet humming of the processors, there was an irregular clicking noise coming from the central server unit. Rosa had grown up on a farm in Mexico where her father repaired agricultural equipment. She knew the sound of a machine in distress. Rosa's daughter Isabella worked in the IT department on the 10th floor. Isabella had inherited her mother's keen observational skills, but applied them to computer programming instead of housekeeping. Rosa had watched her daughter work late into many nights, debugging code and solving complex technical problems that left other programmers stumped. Rosa pulled out her phone and called her daughter. "Mija, I'm in the basement server room and something is very wrong with the big computers. Mama, I can't talk right now. We're dealing with a massive system failure. Everyone is in panic mode. That's why I'm calling. I think I know what's wrong with the computers." Isabella paused. Despite her mother's lack of formal education, she had learned never to dismiss Rosa's observations. Her mother saw things others missed. "What do you see, Mama?" "The big machine in the center, the one with all the blue lights? It's making a clicking sound like Papa's old tractor when the timing belt was loose. And there's a cable behind it that looks different from yesterday." Isabella frowned. The central quantum processor was supposedly operating normally according to all their diagnostic tools. But their diagnostic tools were also part of the corrupted system. "Mama, can you take a picture of this cable and send it to me?" Rosa carefully photographed the back of the server unit, focusing on the cable she had noticed. It looked similar to the others, but something about its connection seemed wrong. The cable appeared to be seated properly, but there was a slight discoloration around the connection point. When Isabella received the photo, she immediately forwarded it to her supervisor with a note. "My mother found this in the server room. She thinks this cable might be connected to our system problems." Her supervisor barely glanced at the message before dismissing it. A janitor's observation about computer hardware seemed absurd when they had millions of dollars worth of diagnostic equipment failing to identify the problem. But Isabella trusted her mother's instincts more than expensive diagnostic tools. She quietly made her way down to the basement server room, her security badge granting her access to areas where her mother worked every day, but most IT personnel rarely visited. When she arrived, Rosa pointed to the cable in question. "Look, Mija, this cable was not here yesterday. I know because I clean around these machines every single day." Isabella examined the cable more closely. It looked standard, but something felt wrong. The cable was warm to the touch, warmer than the others, and when she traced its path, she realized it was connected to a port that should have been empty according to the system documentation. "Mama, I think you might have found something important." Isabella Martinez knelt beside her mother in the server room, examining the suspicious cable with growing concern. Her 5 years working in Richardson Technologies' IT department had taught her to recognize when something didn't belong. "This cable was definitely wrong. Mama, you said this cable wasn't here yesterday. Are you absolutely certain?" Rosa nodded emphatically. "I clean this room every night after everyone goes home. I know every wire, every light, every sound these machines make. This cable appeared sometime between last night when I left and this morning when I arrived." Isabella carefully traced the cable's path through the maze of server connections. It led to a small device she didn't recognize, something that looked like a modified network adapter. Her blood ran cold as the implications began to sink in. "This isn't a system failure," she whispered. Someone has hacked into our network. She pulled out her phone and called her supervisor again. Tom, you need to get down to the basement server room immediately. I think we're dealing with a security breach, not a technical malfunction. Tom Harrison, the head of IT, sounded frazzled. Isabella, I don't have time for theories right now. We've got the CEO breathing down our necks and clients threatening to sue us. Whatever your janitor mother thinks she found can wait. Tom, listen to me. There's an unauthorized device connected directly to our quantum processing unit. This could be deliberate sabotage. The line went quiet for a moment. Are you saying someone intentionally caused this system failure? That's exactly what I'm saying. And if I'm right, all the diagnostic work we've been doing is useless because we're trying to fix something that was broken on purpose. While Isabella argued with her supervisor, Rosa continued her own investigation. She had spent 15 years observing the daily routines of Richardson Technologies employees. She knew who belonged where and when. Last night she had noticed something unusual but hadn't thought much of it at the time. Around 11 p.m., as she was finishing her cleaning rounds, she had seen a man in a maintenance uniform working near the server room. He had the right credentials and acted like he belonged there, but something about him had struck her as odd. He was too nervous, too eager to avoid eye contact. Rosa had excellent memory for faces, a skill developed from years of recognizing employees in a building with over 3,000 workers. This man's face was unfamiliar, despite his apparent familiarity with the building's layout. Mija, Rosa said, tugging on Isabella's sleeve. I saw someone last night who shouldn't have been here. Isabella ended her phone call and turned her full attention to her mother. Tell me everything. Around 11 o'clock, there was a man working near these computers. He wore the right uniform and had the right badge, but I never saw him before. In 15 years, I know all the night maintenance staff. This man was different. Isabella's mind raced. Professional corporate sabotage was more common than most companies wanted to admit. A competitor could have planted someone to infiltrate Richardson Technologies and disrupt the merger with Yamamoto Industries. What did this man look like, Mama? Tall, maybe 40 years old, with red hair and a small scar on his left hand. He carried a black briefcase that he was very protective of. Isabella grabbed her security radio. Building security, this is Isabella Martinez in IT. I need to speak with whoever is in charge of reviewing last night's security footage. The security guard who responded sounded bored. What's this regarding? Possible corporate espionage. I need to see footage from the basement level between 10 p.m. and midnight last night. 20 minutes later, Isabella and her mother sat in the security office with Chief Security Officer David Park, reviewing digital recordings from the previous evening. The footage clearly showed a man matching Rosa's description entering the server room with what appeared to be legitimate credentials. Can you enhance this image? Isabella asked, pointing to a clear shot of the intruder's face. David worked his computer magic, zooming in and sharpening the image until the man's features were clearly visible. I can run this through our employee database and see if we get a match. The search came back negative. The man was not a Richardson Technologies employee, despite having access credentials that had allowed him to enter the most secure areas of the building. This is definitely corporate espionage, David concluded. Someone went to significant trouble to plant this person in our building. Meanwhile, 3 floors above, Marcus Richardson was fighting to save his business empire. The Japanese delegation had agreed to delay their departure by 2 hours, but their patience was clearly wearing thin. Every minute that passed without a resolution made the merger less likely. Sarah Chen approached him with yet another update. Sir, our IT department thinks they might have found something. Isabella Martinez believes the system failure might have been caused by deliberate sabotage. Marcus looked up with the first spark of hope he had felt in hours. Sabotage? You mean this wasn't just a technical failure? Apparently, her mother discovered some kind of unauthorized device connected to our quantum processors. If she's right, someone intentionally crashed our systems. Marcus felt a mix of relief and rage. Relief that his company's technology wasn't fundamentally flawed, and rage that someone had deliberately tried to destroy his merger opportunity. Get Isabella Martinez up here immediately. If she can prove this was sabotage and get our systems back online, I'll personally ensure she's rewarded appropriately. Sarah hesitated. Sir, there might be one problem. Isabella is just a mid-level programmer, and her mother is a janitor. The board members and our Japanese guests might not react well to hearing that our salvation came from the cleaning staff. Marcus stared at her in disbelief. Sarah, I don't care if the solution came from the cafeteria workers or the parking lot attendants. If this Isabella Martinez and her mother can save this merger, they'll be heroes as far as I'm concerned. But even as he spoke, Marcus wondered if it was too late. The damage to his company's reputation might already be irreversible. Corporate clients were calling to complain about system crashes. The stock price had already begun dropping as news of the technical failures spread through financial networks. In the basement, Isabella was carefully documenting the unauthorized device her mother had discovered. She photographed it from every angle and began the delicate process of disconnecting it without causing further damage to the system. If I'm right about this, she told her mother, removing this device should allow our systems to recover, but if I'm wrong, I might make everything worse. Rosa placed a reassuring hand on her daughter's shoulder. Mija, trust yourself. You are the smartest person I know. Your father would be so proud to see you saving this big company. Isabella took a deep breath and began disconnecting the sabotage device. The moment it was removed from the system, the erratic blinking patterns on the quantum processors began to stabilize. Normal operational lights started returning to their steady rhythm. She called the IT department. Tom, try running a systems diagnostic now. I think I just fixed our problem. The Richardson Technologies building seemed to hold its collective breath as Isabella Martinez's fix propagated through the system. On the 10th floor, IT supervisor Tom Harrison watched his monitors with growing amazement as server after server came back online. This is impossible, he muttered to his team. The diagnostic systems are showing normal operations across all networks. How did disconnecting one small device fix everything? His lead technician, a man with 20 years of experience in corporate IT systems, shook his head in wonder. That device must have been incredibly sophisticated. It was designed to create cascading failures that would look like fundamental system flaws, rather than deliberate sabotage. Meanwhile, in the executive conference room, Marcus Richardson noticed his phone buzzing with notifications. System alerts that had been showing critical failures were beginning to change to normal operational status. His heart began to race with cautious optimism. Sarah Chen appeared in the doorway, her face showing the first genuine smile of the day. Sir, our systems are coming back online. Isabella Martinez was right, it was sabotage. Someone planted a device designed to crash our entire network infrastructure. Kenji Yamamoto looked up from his papers with renewed interest. Mr. Richardson, are you suggesting that your technical difficulties were the result of corporate espionage? It appears so, Mr. Yamamoto. One of our employees discovered an unauthorized device that was specifically designed to create the failures you witnessed. Yuki Yamamoto leaned forward. Who discovered this device? Your head of IT? Marcus hesitated for a moment, knowing how the truth might sound. Actually, it was discovered by one of our cleaning staff and confirmed by her daughter, who works in our IT department. The room fell silent. The idea that a janitor had solved a problem that stumped an entire team of highly paid IT professionals seemed absurd, yet the evidence was undeniable. Systems were coming back online faster than anyone had thought possible. I would very much like to meet this cleaning lady and her daughter, Kenji Yamamoto said quietly. In Japan, we have great respect for those who notice what others miss. 20 minutes later, Rosa Martinez found herself in an elevator she had only cleaned but never ridden, heading to the 20th floor wearing her work uniform and feeling completely out of place. Isabella stood beside her, equally nervous but trying to project professional confidence. Mama, just be yourself, Isabella whispered. Tell them exactly what you saw. But Mija, these are important business people. They won't want to listen to an old cleaning lady. They'll listen. Mama, you just saved their entire company. When the elevator doors opened, they were greeted by Sarah Chen, who escorted them to the executive conference room. Rosa had never seen such luxury in her 15 years at the company. The oak table alone probably cost more than she made in 5 years. Marcus Richardson stood as they entered, a gesture of respect that surprised Rosa. In all her years working at the company, the CEO had never acknowledged her existence. Ms. Martinez, please have a seat. I understand we owe you both an enormous debt of gratitude. Rosa remained standing, unsure of the protocol. She had spent decades being invisible in corporate environments, and suddenly being the center of attention felt surreal. Isabella stepped forward. "Mr. Richardson, my mother discovered the unauthorized device, but I want to make it clear that our entire IT department deserves credit for the recovery process." "That's very generous of you," said Yuki Yamamoto, "but we're interested in hearing directly from your mother about what she observed." Rosa looked around the room at the expectant faces. These were the people who made decisions worth billions of dollars, and they wanted to hear from a woman who mopped floors for a living. "I saw a man last night who didn't belong," Rosa said simply, her accented English clear despite her nervousness. "In 15 years I learned to know everyone who works late. This man was different. He was too nervous, too careful not to look at people. When you clean offices for many years, you learn to notice when someone is hiding something." Kenji Yamamoto nodded appreciatively. "What made you suspect the cable this morning?" The sound was wrong. The big computers, they usually hum like happy cats. This morning they clicked like broken machinery, and the cable was warm when it should be cool. My husband, he fixed farm equipment for 40 years before he died. Machines tell you when something is wrong if you listen. The room was completely silent. This woman, who most of them had never noticed despite seeing her work around the building for years, had solved a crisis that threatened to destroy the company. Isabella added, "The device we found was sophisticated. It was designed to create system failures that would appear to be fundamental flaws in our architecture, rather than external sabotage. Someone with significant technical knowledge and financial resources planned this attack." David Park, the security chief, entered the room carrying a folder. "I've completed the preliminary investigation. The intruder used credentials that appear to have been professionally forged. We're dealing with a highly organized effort to sabotage this merger." Marcus felt his anger building. "Do we have any leads on who might be behind this?" "The timing suggests it was someone who knew about the merger meeting. That limits the suspect pool to people with inside knowledge of Richardson Technologies' business plans." Yuki Yamamoto looked thoughtful. "Mr. Richardson, in my experience, this level of sophisticated sabotage usually comes from competitors who feel threatened by potential mergers. Someone clearly wanted to prevent Yamamoto Industries from partnering with your company. The question is," her father added, "what does this incident tell us about Richardson Technologies as a potential partner?" Marcus felt the weight of the moment. Everything still depended on how the Japanese delegation interpreted these events. "With respect, Mr. Yamamoto, I think it demonstrates several important things about our company. First, we have employees at every level who are observant and dedicated to the company's success. Second, we have security protocols that, while not perfect, were sufficient to identify and resolve the threat. And third, we face sabotage precisely because our technology represents a significant competitive threat." Isabella spoke up, her voice stronger now. "Mr. Yamamoto, if I may add something, the fact that someone went to such elaborate lengths to sabotage this merger suggests that our technology is valuable enough to justify significant criminal risk. That should be seen as validation of Richardson Technologies' market position." Rosa looked at her daughter with pride. Isabella was finding her voice in this room full of powerful people. Kenji Yamamoto stood slowly, his decision clearly made. "Mrs. Martinez, your observation skills saved not just this merger, but potentially both our companies. Ms. Martinez, your technical skills and analytical thinking are impressive." He turned to Marcus. "Mr. Richardson, I have seen enough. A company that inspires such dedication from its employees, and that can solve complex problems through the combined efforts of people at all levels of the organization, is exactly the kind of partner Yamamoto Industries wants." Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Are you saying you want to proceed with the merger?" "I'm saying we want to accelerate it. But first I have a request. I want Mrs. Martinez and her daughter to be part of the integration team. Their skills and perspectives are exactly what our combined companies will need." 6 months after the sabotage incident, Richardson Technologies had been transformed beyond recognition. The merger with Yamamoto Industries had not only succeeded, but had exceeded everyone's expectations. The combined company, now called Richardson Yamamoto Global, had become the third largest technology corporation in the world. Isabella Martinez sat in her new office on the 15th floor, reviewing security protocols for the company's international operations. Her title was now Director of System Security. a position created specifically for her after her role in uncovering the sabotage plot. At 28, she was the youngest director in company history. The investigation into the sabotage had revealed a conspiracy involving Richardson Technologies' former head of research, Dr. James Whitmore, who had been secretly working with competing technology firms to prevent the merger. The unauthorized device Isabella had discovered was worth over $2 million and represented months of planning by a team of professional corporate saboteurs. Dr. Whitmore was now serving a 5-year prison sentence for corporate espionage, and 3 competing technology companies were facing federal investigations. The case had made international headlines and established Richardson Yamamoto Global as a company that took security seriously. But the most surprising change wasn't in the corporate structure or security protocols. It was in how the company viewed and valued its employees at every level. Rosa Martinez still worked as a cleaning supervisor, but now she oversaw a team of 20 people and had been given specialized training in security awareness. Her observational skills had become legendary within the company, and she was often consulted on matters involving building security and employee behavior patterns. The corporate culture had shifted dramatically. Kenji Yamamoto had instituted a program called Eyes Everywhere, which encouraged employees at all levels to report unusual observations, no matter how trivial they might seem. The program had already prevented 2 additional sabotage attempts and uncovered several cases of internal theft. Everyone in an organization sees something, Yamamoto had explained during a company-wide meeting. The question is whether we create an environment where people feel comfortable sharing what they observe. Marcus Richardson, now co-CEO alongside Yuki Yamamoto, had initially been skeptical of some of the cultural changes, but the results were undeniable. Employee satisfaction had increased dramatically, productivity was up 30%, and the company's reputation for innovation had never been stronger. The quantum data processing technology that had been sabotaged during the merger presentation had been refined and improved. It was now the cornerstone of Richardson Yamamoto Global's competitive advantage, generating over $800 million in annual revenue. Isabella walked through the building's corridors, noting changes that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Janitors, maintenance workers, security guards, and cafeteria staff were now included in weekly briefings about company security. Their insights were not only welcomed, but actively sought out by management. She found her mother in the executive conference room, the same room where the merger had nearly failed. Rosa was training a new security awareness class, teaching other employees how to recognize suspicious behavior and unusual patterns. Remember, Rosa was saying to a group that included several executives, people who don't belong try very hard to look like they belong. That's what makes them different. They watch other people too carefully, trying to copy normal behavior instead of just being natural. One of the executives, a vice president of marketing, raised his hand. Mrs. Martinez, what specific things should we look for? Someone who knows the building too well on their first day. Someone who avoids eye contact but watches everything. Someone who carries equipment but doesn't seem comfortable using it. Small things that feel wrong. Isabella smiled with pride as she watched her mother command the room's attention. Rosa had discovered a natural talent for teaching, and her classes were always overbooked with employees wanting to learn from the woman who had saved the company. After the training session ended, Isabella walked with her mother toward the elevator. Mama, do you ever miss the quiet days when you just cleaned offices? Rosa laughed. Mija, I never just cleaned offices. I always watched and noticed things. Now people listen when I tell them what I see. It's better this way. They were interrupted by Yuki Yamamoto, who approached them with a warm smile. Over the past 6 months, she had become a close friend to both women. Rosa, I wanted to let you know that the security protocols you helped design for our Tokyo offices have been so successful that we're implementing them in all 57 of our international locations. That's wonderful. But I just told people to watch and listen. The hard work was done by the security experts. That's exactly why it works, Yuki replied. You didn't overcomplicate it. The best security often comes from simple observation and common sense. Marcus Richardson joined their conversation, carrying a folder that he handed to Isabella. I have something for you to review. We've been asked by the Department of Homeland Security to consult on corporate security protocols for critical infrastructure companies. Isabella opened the folder, her eyes widening as she read the documents. They want us to help protect power plants and water treatment facilities? The work you and your mother did uncovering the sabotage plot has made Richardson Yamamoto Global a recognized leader in corporate security. They want our expertise to help prevent similar attacks on essential services." Rosa looked concerned. "That sounds very important and very dangerous." "It is both," Marcus admitted. "But it's also an opportunity to use what we've learned to protect things that affect millions of people." Isabella looked at her mother, then at Marcus and Yuki. 6 months ago, she had been a mid-level programmer whose biggest concern was debugging software code. Now she was being asked to help protect the nation's critical infrastructure. "I'll need a team," Isabella said finally, "and I want my mother involved in developing the human observation protocols." "Of course," Yuki replied. "We've learned that the most sophisticated technology means nothing if people aren't paying attention to what's happening around them." As they stood in the corridor, discussing plans that could affect national security, Isabella reflected on how dramatically her life had changed. A simple phone call from her mother about a suspicious cable had led to discoveries that transformed not just their careers, but an entire corporate culture. "There's one more thing," Marcus said, pulling another document from his briefcase. "The FBI has asked us to help train their agents in corporate infiltration detection. They want Rosa to teach a course at their academy in Quantico." Rosa's eyes widened in disbelief. "The FBI wants me to teach their agents?" "Apparently, your methods for detecting suspicious behavior are more effective than their traditional training programs. The agent who investigated our sabotage case said your insights were invaluable." Isabella put her arm around her mother's shoulders. "Mama, you're going to be training FBI agents. Papa would have been so proud." Rosa smiled, but Isabella could see the nervousness in her eyes. "I don't know anything about being a teacher for such important people." "You've been teaching people your whole life," Yuki said gently. "You taught Isabella to notice details. You taught our security team to trust their instincts. You taught all of us that wisdom comes from experience, not just education." The conversation was interrupted by David Park, the security chief, who approached them with an urgent expression. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. There's been an attempted breach at our Seattle facility." Isabella immediately switched to professional mode. "What kind of breach?" "Someone tried to access the quantum processing center using forged credentials. But here's the interesting part. They were caught by one of the maintenance staff who noticed the person was wearing the wrong type of safety equipment for the area they claimed to be working in." Rosa smiled knowingly. "Someone else is learning to watch and notice." "Exactly," David replied. "The maintenance worker remembered your training about people who try too hard to look like they belong. This person had all the right credentials but was wearing electrical safety gear in a chemical processing area." Marcus shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, that attempted infiltration would probably have succeeded. Now we're catching saboteurs before they can even reach critical systems. "It's not magic," Rosa said simply. "It's just paying attention. Most people see but don't really look. When you clean the same building every day for 15 years, you learn the difference." As they discussed the security implications of the Seattle incident, Isabella realized that her mother had started something much bigger than preventing a single corporate sabotage. Rosa had changed how an entire organization thought about security and observation. The Eyes Everywhere program had been adopted by dozens of other companies. Rosa's training methods were being studied by business schools and security firms around the world. A woman who had been invisible to corporate executives for 15 years had become one of the most influential security consultants in the country. "Mama," Isabella said as they walked toward the elevator, "do you realize that you've basically revolutionized corporate security?" 2 years after the sabotage incident that nearly destroyed Richardson Technologies, Rosa Martinez stood at the podium of the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, addressing a classroom full of federal agents. Her hands no longer shook when speaking to important audiences, and her accented English carried the confidence of someone who had learned her wisdom was valuable. "Today we will talk about seeing what others miss," she began, her voice steady and clear. "Most people think security is about cameras and alarms and computers, but the best security is human eyes that know what normal looks like." In the audience, Agent Sarah Kim took careful notes. She had been investigating corporate espionage for 8 years and had never encountered anyone quite like Rosa Martinez. This woman, who had never attended college or received formal security training, had developed observational techniques that surpassed those taught in advanced law enforcement academies. "Agent Kim," Rosa said, noticing her intense note-taking. "Tell me what you observed when you walked into this classroom today." Agent Kim looked around the room, trying to remember details she hadn't consciously registered. There are 23 other agents present. The air conditioning is set slightly too cold and someone in the back row is wearing cologne that's too strong. Rosa nodded approvingly. "Good, you noticed numbers, comfort, and sensory details. But did you notice that the man in the third row has a small ink stain on his left sleeve that wasn't there yesterday? Or that the woman by the window keeps checking her phone in a pattern that suggests she's expecting bad news?" The agents turned to look at the people Rosa had mentioned, and indeed, the details she described were accurate. Agent Kim felt a mixture of admiration and frustration. How had this former janitor noticed things that trained investigators had missed? "The secret," Rosa continued, "is not trying to see everything. It's learning to recognize patterns and then noticing when something breaks the pattern. I cleaned the same building for 15 years. I knew what belonged and what didn't. That knowledge saved a company worth billions of dollars." Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in Seattle, Isabella Martinez was leading a team of security specialists through the Richardson-Yamamoto Global Facility that had been targeted in the recent infiltration attempt. As Director of Global Security Operations, she now oversaw protection for 57 facilities across 12 countries. "The attempted breach here demonstrates something important," Isabella explained to her team. "Traditional security measures would have allowed this infiltrator to access sensitive areas. He had perfect credentials, appropriate identification, and knew the correct entry procedures." Her assistant, Michael Chen, reviewed his tablet, but he was caught by a maintenance worker who noticed his safety equipment was wrong for the area he claimed to be working in. "Exactly. That maintenance worker attended one of my mother's training sessions 6 months ago. She learned to trust her observations even when everything else seemed normal." The maintenance worker in question, Janitor, joined their group. She was a shy woman in her 50s who had worked at the facility for 12 years. "I almost didn't report it," she admitted. "The man seemed legitimate, and I thought maybe I was mistaken about the safety protocols." "What made you decide to call security?" Isabella asked. "I remembered what Mrs. Martinez taught us. She said when something feels wrong, it usually is wrong. Even if you can't explain why, trust your instincts. So I called security and let them decide if I was being silly." Isabella smiled. Her mother's influence had spread far beyond the original Richardson Technologies building. The training program Rosa had developed was now used by corporations, government agencies, and law enforcement organizations around the world. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her mother. "Finished teaching today. These FBI agents are very smart. They learn fast. Coming home tomorrow," Isabella typed back. "Proud of you, Mama. See you tomorrow." The relationship between mother and daughter had evolved dramatically over the past 2 years. Isabella was now the public face of their security innovations, giving presentations at international conferences and consulting with Fortune 500 companies. But everyone in the industry knew that the foundational insights came from Rosa Martinez, the former cleaning lady who had revolutionized how organizations think about security. Back at Richardson-Yamamoto Global Headquarters, Marcus Richardson was meeting with Kenji Yamamoto to review the company's quarterly performance. The numbers were extraordinary. Revenue had increased by 300% since the merger, and the company's reputation for both innovation and security had made it the most sought-after technology partner in the world. "The Seattle incident could have been devastating," Marcus said, reviewing security reports. "If that infiltrator had accessed our quantum processing systems, the industrial espionage could have set us back years." Kenji nodded thoughtfully. "Instead, it became another demonstration of why our security approach is superior. We caught the threat before any damage was done, and we learned valuable information about our competitors' tactics. Rosa Martinez's training program has become one of our most valuable assets," Marcus admitted. "Companies pay us millions of dollars to implement her observational techniques in their facilities. Have you considered what would have happened if Rosa had been like most employees? If she had simply done her cleaning work without paying attention to her surroundings?" Marcus shuddered at the thought. Richardson Technologies would have been destroyed. The sabotage would have succeeded, the merger would have failed, and I would probably be bankrupt. One woman's decision to trust her instincts changed the fate of thousands of employees and billions of dollars in investments. The conversation was interrupted by Yuki Yamamoto, who entered the office carrying a newspaper. "Father Marcus, you need to see this." She spread the paper on the conference table, revealing a front-page article titled, "The Janitor Who Changed Corporate America." The article featured a large photograph of Rosa Martinez standing in front of the FBI Academy, surrounded by federal agents. The subtitle read, "How a Cleaning Lady's Observational Skills Revolutionized Corporate Security and Prevented Billions in Damages." Marcus read the article aloud. Rosa Martinez never attended business school or studied corporate security, but her simple philosophy of noticing what doesn't belong has transformed how America's largest companies protect themselves from industrial espionage. From her beginnings as a cleaning lady at Richardson Technologies to her current role training FBI agents, Martinez represents a new approach to security that values human observation over technological solutions. "Listen to this quote from her," Yuki said, pointing to a highlighted section. "I tell people that security is not about being suspicious of everyone. It's about knowing what normal looks like so you can recognize when something is different. Most problems announce themselves if you're paying attention." The article went on to describe how Rosa's techniques had prevented over 40 attempted corporate infiltrations across various industries. Security firms were now hiring former janitors, maintenance workers, and other service employees as consultants, recognizing that people who work invisibly in corporate environments often notice things that executives miss. As the three executives discussed the article, none of them could have predicted how profoundly one woman's willingness to trust her observations would change their lives. Rosa Martinez had started as an invisible employee whose primary job was emptying trash cans and mopping floors. She had become a national security consultant whose insights were protecting some of America's most critical infrastructure. That evening, Isabella called her mother at the hotel in Quantico. "Mama, I saw the newspaper article. How does it feel to be famous?" Rosa laughed. "Mija, I'm not famous. I just taught people to use their eyes and trust what they see. That's something everyone should already know how to do." "But you changed everything, Mama. Companies all over the world are safer because of what you taught them." "No, Mija. Companies all over the world are safer because people like Janitoras in Seattle decided to trust what they observed instead of ignoring it. I just reminded them that their observations matter." As Isabella ended the call, she realized that her mother's greatest accomplishment wasn't developing new security techniques or training FBI agents. It was convincing ordinary people that their observations and instincts had value, even in environments where they might feel powerless or invisible. The cleaning lady who had saved a billion-dollar merger had done something far more important. She had reminded the world that wisdom and insight can come from anywhere, and that paying attention to small details can prevent enormous disasters.